Frank Delaney's cane slipped on the slick Chicago sidewalk, and he crashed to the frozen ground, his grocery bag tearing open. Oranges and bananas spilled into the slush, their bright colors mocking him as a blinding pain ripped through his hip. A jogger paused, but Frank snarled, "I'm fine. Keep going." He wasn't. At 68, every fall felt like a final warning. He'd eaten healthy his whole life. Fruit salads, smoothies, the works. Yet his legs were betraying him. What Frank didn't know, as he clawed his way up, was that the fruits he trusted were silently destroying him. And one, a superstar of American grocery aisles, was the deadliest culprit, steering him toward a fall he might never walk away from. Protect your legs now. Type 1 to uncover the 7 fruits seniors must avoid. Chapter 1. The Pineapple Conspiracy. Frank Delaney, a retired Chicago firefighter, had a lifelong love for pineapple. Its golden, juicy chunks brightened his morning yogurt, and he'd blend it into smoothies, convinced its bromelain enzyme was a silver bullet for his aching joints. Health blogs, TV doctors, and even his daughter Sarah, a nurse at Northwestern Memorial, sang its praises. "It's nature's anti-inflammatory, Dad," she'd say, tossing a fresh one into his cart at the Jewel Osco. But one bitter November morning, Frank tuned into a health podcast by Dr. Emily Voss, a nutritionist known for dismantling dietary myths. Her voice cut through the static like a fire alarm. "Seniors, that pineapple in your kitchen, it's not your ally. It's spiking your blood sugar, inflaming your joints, and sapping your leg strength." Frank's hand froze on his coffee mug, his heart thudding. "Pineapple's high fructose content, Doctor," Voss explained, was a silent menace for seniors. It surged through aging blood vessels, shredding the tiny capillaries that fed his legs and feet. Over months, this starved his muscles of oxygen, explaining the swelling and exhaustion he felt after a short walk to the corner deli. The acidity was a nastier blow, grinding away at his arthritic knees and hips like steel wool. Frank winced, picturing the dull throb in his calves after his last smoothie binge. He'd chalked it up to his old firefighting injuries, the years of hauling hoses and climbing ladders. Then came the gut punch. Pineapple's bromelain could interfere with his blood thinners, prescribed after a heart scare 4 years ago. Too much pineapple, and his blood could thin to a dangerous degree, risking internal bleeds or worse. Frank had been eating it daily, chunks in his breakfast, slices as snacks, thinking he was staving off inflammation. Instead, he was fueling a fire in his joints. Dr. Voss urged swapping pineapple for blueberries or raspberries, low sugar, packed with antioxidants, and gentle on aging bodies. Frank grabbed a pen, scribbling furiously, his mind reeling. His tropical favorite, a fixture in his kitchen, was the first traitor to fall. The betrayal ran deeper than he'd imagined. Pineapple's damage was insidious, creeping up over months, even years. The stiffness when he stood from his recliner, the soreness after sitting through a Cubs game. It wasn't just age or old scars. It was his diet, waging a quiet war. Frank marched to his fridge, yanking out the pineapple and dumping it into the compost bin with a thud. He'd saved lives in blazing infernos, pulling families from smoke-choked buildings. He could damn well save himself from a fruit. But as he stared at his fruit bowl, a chill settled in. If pineapple, the poster child of health, was a lie, what else in his kitchen was plotting against him? He called Sarah that evening, his voice tight. "You ever question pineapple?" he asked. She paused, surprised, admitting she'd trusted the hype like everyone else. Frank's jaw set. He'd been a hero once, charging into danger without hesitation. Now, he'd fight for his body, starting with the foods he'd trusted blindly. He scoured Dr. Voss's podcast notes, cross-referencing with library books on nutrition. Pineapple wasn't just a bad choice, it was a trap, luring seniors with its sweet promise while weakening them bite by bite. Frank vowed to rethink his entire diet, one fruit at a time. Chapter 2. The Banana Trap. Bananas were Frank's comfort food, a soft, sweet constant in his life. They sat on his kitchen counter, always within reach for a quick snack or a late-night bite. Sarah swore by their potassium, insisting they'd stop his leg cramps. "Perfect for you, Dad," she'd say, leaving a bunch every week. But Dr. Voss's podcast flipped everything upside down. Bananas are a sweet saboteur for seniors. Their fast-digesting sugars spike your blood glucose, triggering inflammation that hammers your joints and circulation. Frank's fists clenched, his coffee going cold. He ate bananas daily, 2, sometimes 3, especially before bed. Dr. Voss explained that those sugar spikes were brutal for aging bodies. At 68, Frank's insulin regulation was faltering, and each banana sent his blood sugar on a roller coaster, sparking low-grade inflammation. The fallout? Heavier legs, stiff calves, and a lingering soreness after walking to the mailbox. He'd blamed the wear and tear of his firefighting days, but now doubt gnawed at him. Bananas also promoted fluid retention, a nightmare for Frank's swollen ankles. He'd noticed his socks digging into his skin by evening, leaving angry red marks, but he'd pointed the finger at his heart medications. Dr. Voss dropped another bombshell. Bananas burned fast, lacking the fiber or healthy fats to balance their sugar load. This left Frank crashing hard, craving more, or waking with searing leg cramps. For someone on ACE inhibitors, like Frank, eating too many bananas could spike potassium levels, risking dangerous heart rhythm issues. His nightly banana habit, so innocent, was a ticking time bomb. Dr. Voss suggested avocados or pears, fruits that delivered steady energy without the inflammatory crash. Frank glared at the bananas on his counter, their cheerful yellow now a glaring warning sign. He'd trusted them for decades, a staple since his childhood. But they were draining his strength, one sweet bite at a time. He bagged them up for Sarah's kids and added avocados to his grocery list, his resolve hardening. One fruit down, but the battle was just heating up. Frank shared his discovery with his buddy Mike at the local senior center over coffee and chess. Mike laughed, waving him off. "Bananas? They're harmless, Frank." But Frank wasn't joking. He'd been duped, lulled into complacency by a fruit he'd never questioned. He started noticing other seniors at the center, munching bananas during bingo, unaware of the damage. Frank's old firefighter instincts kicked in. He couldn't save everyone, but he could warn them. He printed out Dr. Voss's podcast summary, slipping it into conversations. Some rolled their eyes, but others, like his friend Maria, listened, intrigued. Frank wasn't just changing his diet, he was starting a quiet revolution, one snack at a time. Chapter 3. The Grape Deception. Grapes were Frank's guilty pleasure, a sweet escape during Cubs games. He'd pop them by the handful, their juicy burst taking him back to childhood summers on his grandpa's porch. Marketed as heart-healthy, brimming with antioxidants, they seemed like a no-brainer. But Dr. Voss's voice on the podcast was unrelenting. Grapes are tiny inflammation bombs. Their fructose turns into fat and uric acid, piling up in your joints and sparking pain. Frank's stomach dropped. His big toe had been throbbing lately, a gout flare-up he'd dismissed as bad luck. Now, grapes were in the crosshairs. Dr. Voss explained that fructose, processed by the liver, could overwhelm aging bodies, especially in high doses. For seniors like Frank, with slower metabolisms, this meant joint pain, swelling, and stiffness, particularly in the toes, ankles, and knees. The real danger was their size. Grapes were so easy to overeat. Frank could polish off a bowl without thinking, each grape delivering a sugar hit that strained his sluggish circulation. Dr. Voss warned that this sugar overload could spike blood pressure, tire his legs, and damage blood vessels over time. Grape juice and raisins were even worse, concentrating the sugar into an inflammatory grenade. For someone borderline diabetic, like Frank, grapes were a recipe for disaster. He thought back to the burning in his toe after long game nights, the tightness in his calves after morning walks. It wasn't just the beer or the cold weather. Grapes were playing a role. She suggested cherries in moderation, low sugar and packed with gout-fighting compounds. Frank sighed, picturing the bags of grapes in his fridge, their innocent look now a facade. He tossed them out, replacing them with a small bag of cherries. The cubs would have to wait. His joints couldn't take another inning of grapes. Frank felt a mix of anger and clarity. He'd been snacking his way to pain, completely unaware. He brought it up with Sarah, who was skeptical but curious. "Grapes too, Dad? What's next?" Frank nodded, his voice firm. "Everything's on the table now." He wasn't just tweaking his diet. He was dismantling a lifetime of blind trust in healthy foods. At the senior center, his story sparked debates. Some scoffed, calling him paranoid, but others, like Maria, started questioning their own fruit bowls. Frank handed out Dr. Voss's podcast link, feeling like the old firefighter again, spotting danger before it spread. Grapes were just the start. He was ready to uncover the next traitor. Chapter 4. The Watermelon Mirage, 2,000 Words. Watermelon was Frank's summer love, a staple at every Chicago barbecue. He'd carve wedges for family cookouts, its juicy lightness a hit with kids and adults alike. Over 90% water, it felt hydrating, low-calorie, and guilt-free. But Dr. Voss labeled it a sugary hydration hoax. Its sky-high glycemic index sent blood sugar soaring, a disaster for seniors like Frank, whose metabolism had slowed to a crawl. The insulin surge that followed sparked inflammation, showing up as swollen ankles, sore knees, and a heavy ache in his legs. Frank ate watermelon by the slab, sometimes half a melon on sweltering days, thinking it was harmless. That sugar bomb, Dr. Voss said, caused energy crashes and joint stress, hitting aging bodies hard. For someone with circulatory issues like Frank, it was a silent saboteur, intensifying the heaviness he felt after short walks. He'd noticed swelling after picnics, his ankles puffing up, but he'd blamed the heat or too much salt. Now, watermelon was suspect. Dr. Voss pointed out another issue. Watermelon's hydration illusion led people to skip plain water, disrupting fluid balance. For seniors on diuretics, like Frank, this could worsen dehydration rather than relieve it. She recommended cucumber slices or papaya, hydrating without the sugar spike. Frank stared at the watermelon in his cooler, its pinkish flesh no longer innocent. He swapped it for papaya at the store, determined to break the cycle. Summer wouldn't taste the same, but his legs might thank him. Frank tested papaya at the next family cookout, and Sarah's kids devoured it. "Not bad, Dad," she said, raising an eyebrow. Frank grinned, a small victory. But the bigger fight was internal. His trust in fruit was shattered, replaced by a burning need to understand what his body needed. He started reading nutrition labels, something he'd never bothered with before. Watermelon wasn't just a treat, it was a lesson in questioning everything. Frank's days of blind eating were over. He was building a new way to live, one choice at a time. Chapter 5. The orange facade oranges were Frank's morning ritual, a tall glass of OJ with his eggs and toast, a nod to the breakfasts of his childhood. They were the symbol of health, packed with vitamin C, but Dr. Voss called them a citrus culprit. Their citric acid irritated aging joints, worsening inflammation in his knees and hips. Frank's morning stiffness, the heaviness when climbing stairs, it all started to make sense. The sugar-acid combo in orange juice hit his system like a double shot of espresso, then left him foggy, sore, and drained. For someone with arthritis, like Frank, oranges were like pouring lemon juice on a cut. Dr. Voss explained that as bodies age, tolerance for acids drops, and repeated exposure could exacerbate joint pain, particularly in the knees, hips, and ankles. Orange juice was worse, delivering a concentrated dose of sugar and acid without the fiber to slow it down. Frank's daily habit, so ingrained, was working against him, masquerading as health. She suggested papaya or berries, low-acid fruits that soothed rather than irritated. Frank stared at his juice carton, feeling betrayed by decades of healthy advice. He poured it down the sink, grabbing a pint of berries from the fridge. His mornings needed a new start, one that didn't fight his body. Frank's resolve was like steel now. He'd been blind for too long, but his eyes were wide open. He told his buddy Mike at the senior center, who shrugged. "Orange juice? That's classic, Frank." But Frank wasn't swayed. He was done with classics that hurt him. His story started spreading at the center, sparking heated debates over coffee. Some called him obsessed, but others, like Maria, swapped their OJ for smoothies with berries and reported less morning pain. Frank felt a spark of pride. He wasn't just saving himself, he was lighting a path for others. Chapter 6. The Green Apple Sting. Green apples were Frank's healthy dessert, a crisp, tart alternative to candy. He'd munch them while reading the Tribune, feeling virtuous for choosing fruit over sweets. But Dr. Voss warned that their malic acid was a sour strain on aging joints. In seniors, it could irritate the gut and joints, causing burning knees, sore feet, or hip tightness. Frank's nighttime leg cramps, the stiffness he blamed on his old mattress. Green apples were suddenly suspects. Even their modest sugar content could spike blood sugar, especially when eaten alone late at night. Dr. Voss explained that as the body ages, it becomes less efficient at handling sugar fluctuations, and green apples, despite their healthy image, could contribute to cramps, fatigue, and stiffness. For Frank, who often ate them before bed, this explained his restless nights and sluggish mornings. She suggested pears or steamed fruits, paired with a bit of protein like yogurt to stabilize blood sugar. Frank eyed the green apples in his fruit bowl, their clean, wholesome look now a lie. He swapped them for pears, hoping for fewer cramps and lighter steps. Frank was done with deception. His body deserved foods that fought for him, not against him. He shared his findings with Sarah, who nodded slowly. "You're really digging into this, Dad." Frank felt unstoppable. He wasn't just tweaking his diet, he was reclaiming his life. At the senior center, his apple swap became a hot topic. Some laughed, but Maria tried pears and reported better sleep. Frank kept pushing, handing out Dr. Voss's podcast link like a lifeline. He was rewriting his story, and maybe others too. Chapter 7. The Mango Betrayal. Mango was Frank's indulgence, a tropical escape in Chicago's dreary winters. He'd blend it into smoothies or dice it into salads, calling it his superfruit for its vitamins and antioxidants. But Dr. Voss labeled it a tropical sugar bomb. Its sugars hit like a spoonful of syrup, spiking blood sugar and crashing hard. For Frank, with nerve issues and borderline arthritis, Mango's inflammation triggered burning toes, evening swelling, and a heaviness in his legs. Its soft, juicy texture made overeating effortless. One mango packed as much sugar as a candy bar, yet felt light. Frank never stopped at a slice, and that excess was quietly eroding his joint health, promoting inflammation, and disrupting his balance. Dr. Voss warned that for seniors with poor circulation, like Frank, mango could intensify symptoms, turning minor aches into constant pain. She recommended papaya, tropical but gentler, with natural enzymes that reduced swelling. Frank stared at the mango in his fridge, its vibrant flesh now a danger zone. He tossed it, grabbing papaya instead. His favorite fruit was the worst offender, and the betrayal stung. But Frank wasn't broken. He was rebuilding, one careful choice at a time. He told the senior center, and some listened, intrigued. Maria swapped mango for papaya and felt less bloated. Frank saw seniors at the market, loading carts with mangoes, unaware of the damage. He handed out Dr. Voss's podcast link, his old firefighter instincts alive. Spot a spark, stop a fire. Mango was the final blow, but it lit a fire in Frank. He wasn't just surviving at 68. He was fighting to thrive. To epilogue, a stronger path. Frank overhauled his fruit bowl. Blueberries, cherries, avocados, papaya, pears. Dr. Voss's 5 safe fruits fought inflammation, eased gout, cushioned joints, soothed digestion, and steadied energy. Within weeks, Frank's ankles swelled less, his knees ached less, and his morning walks felt lighter. Sarah noticed, beaming. "Dad, you're like your old self." Frank just grinned, keeping his secret weapon, Dr. Voss's advice, close. His story spread at the senior center, changing diets and sparking debates. Some scoffed, but others, like Maria, tried the swaps and felt stronger. In Chicago's bustling markets, Frank saw seniors grabbing pineapples and bananas, clueless. He shared Dr. Voss's podcast link, a quiet act of heroism. Small changes, he learned, could rewrite the story of aging. At 68, Frank wasn't just surviving, he was thriving, one deliberate bite at a time. His cane gathered dust, and his steps grew surer. The fruits had betrayed him, but Frank had won the war. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and share with your friends. Your support keeps these stories alive. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if today's story touched your heart, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Take care, stay well, and see you in the next story.